This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome to this pre-recorded informational webinar for the Educational Technology, Media, and Materials for Individuals with Disabilities Program. This webinar is for the FY 2019 Stepping Up Technology Implementation Grant Competition administered by the Office of Special Education Programs, or OSEP. My name is Terry Jackson. I'm a project officer here at OSEP, and I'm also the competition manager for this specific grant funding opportunity. I'll provide an overview for the purpose of the Educational Technology Media Materials Program and the absolute priority, which is the Stepping Up Technology Implementation, as well as submission procedures, formatting recommendations, sections of the application, selection criteria, and the general requirements. So the purposes of the OSEP Educational Technology Media Materials Program is to improve results for students with disabilities by promoting the development, demonstration, and use of technology, support educational activities designed to be of educational value in the classroom for students with disabilities, provide support for captioning and video description that is appropriate for use in the classroom, and provide accessible educational materials to students with disabilities in a timely manner. The purpose of the absolute priority is to identify strategies needed to effectively implement technology tools based on promising evidence that benefit teachers, children with disabilities, and children with high needs. Develop and disseminate products that will help a broad range of sites to understand, use, and implement these technology tools. Provide ongoing coaching and professional development supports to educators that will allow them to integrate the technology into classroom curricula or early childhood programs to support high expectations for children with disabilities, service providers and families, and scale up and disseminate to additional sites. Now I want to talk about the requirements for the absolute priority that applicants must include in the application. First, they must include a project design that is based on promising evidence, a logic model or conceptual framework that depicts at a minimum the goals, activities, project evaluation methods, performance measures, outputs, and outcomes of the proposed project. A plan to implement the activities described in the project activities section of this priority. A plan linked to the proposed project's logic model or conceptual framework for a formative evaluation of the proposed project's activities. That plan must describe how the formative evaluation will use clear performance objectives to ensure continuous improvement in the operation of the proposed project, including objective measures of progress in implementing the project and ensuring the quality of products and services. Documentation, assuring that the final products disseminated to help sites effectively implement technology tools will be an open educational resource and licensed through an open access licensing authority. Open educational resources are teaching and learning materials that the public may freely use and reuse at no cost. Unlike fixed copyrighted resources, OERs have been authored or created by an individual or organization that chooses to retain few, if any, ownership rights. And then we have the link here that you can retrieve more information about open OERs. You must also include documentation that the technology tool used by the project is fully developed based on promising evidence and addresses at a minimum the following principles of universal design for learning that includes multiple means of presentation, multiple means of expression, multiple means of engagement. So I want to emphasize here that this grant competition is about the implementation of a fully developed existing technology with promising evidence. So if there are any parts of the technology that needs developing, it should be very minor. Projects must also include a plan for how the project will sustain the work after funding ends, as well as a plan for how applicant will recruit and select the 3 development sites and 4 pilot sites and the 10 dissemination sites. Please note applicants must include the names of the school sites or LEAs for the development and pilot sites only. Dissemination sites are determined along with the OSEP project officer if an applicant is funded. The development sites are where the iterative development of the products and resources intended to support the implementation of technology tools will occur. Applicants must start implementing the technology tool with one development site in year 1 of the project period and 2 additional development sites in year 2. The pilot sites are where the applicants are trying out the technology, along with formative evaluation and refinement of the products and resources will occur. Applicants must work with the 4 pilot sites during years 3 and 4 of the project period. The dissemination sites will be selected if the project is extended for a 5th year. The dissemination sites is also about scaling up the work and refining the products for use by teachers and evaluating the performance of the technology tool. The dissemination sites will receive less technical assistance from projects than the development of pilot sites. Also, at this stage, dissemination sites will extend the benefits of the technology tool to additional students. The applicant should note that a site may not serve in more than one category. So for the 4 pilot school sites, the 4 pilot school sites must be different from the 3 development school sites, and the 10 dissemination sites must be different from the development of pilot sites. So at the end of the project, an applicant will have worked with at least 17 different school sites combined. Additionally, a minimum of 2 of the 7 development and pilot sites must be in settings other than traditional public elementary and secondary schools. A minimum of 3 of the 10 dissemination sites must be in settings other than the traditional public elementary and secondary schools where students are served under IDEA. Applicants must also provide information on the development and pilot school sites, including student demographics and other pertinent information where children are supported under IDEA, and the school sites identified for comprehensive or targeted support and improvement under ESEA. Applicants must also include a budget for attendance at the following: at a 1.5-day kickoff meeting to be held in Washington, D.C. at the receipt of an award, and an annual planning meeting that's also held in Washington, D.C. with the OSEP project officer and other relevant staff during each subsequent year of the project period. Applicants must also include a 3-day project directors conference in Washington, D.C. during each year of the project period, and 2 annual 2-day trips to attend department briefings, department-sponsored conferences, and other meetings as requested by OSEP. Please note that applicants should carefully review the project activities that follow the priority requirements in both the NIA and the full application. The Stepping Up Technology Implementation Grant Opportunity has a CFDA number of 84.327S. This is a 5-year project that's being funded between $450,000 to $500,000 per year. So the applicant's budget should be $500,000 or less for each of the 5 project years. Eligible applicants for this grant competition include SEAs, LEAs, including public charter schools that are considered LEAs under state law, IHEs, other public agencies, private nonprofit organizations, outlying areas, freely associated states, Indian tribes or tribal organizations, and for-profit organizations. Registering in the systems for award management is also required before submitting an application. We strongly encourage you to start this process as soon as possible. The NIA provides additional information on registering in SAM. Once a SAM registration is active, it will take between 24 to 48 hours for the information to be available in grants.gov, and the applicants must be submitted through grants.gov. Applications must be submitted through grants.gov. Applicants who are unable to submit an application via grants.gov by the application deadline due to inactive SAM registration will not be considered for funding. At the time of this recording, the NIA is not available, so please check the NIA closely for the closing date for this grant opportunity. Applicants having problems submitting to grants.gov before the closing date should contact grants.gov customer support at 1-800-518-4726. Applications will not be accepted after 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time of the closing date, and there are no exceptions to this. Applicants are strongly encouraged to verify that grants.gov received the application submission on time and that the submission was validated successfully. Applicants can verify through the Track My Application link on the grants.gov. A successful submission will have the date and time received in G5 earlier than 11:59 p.m. Washington, D.C. time on the deadline date. As the application moves successfully between grants.gov and the department's G5 system, the status in G5 cycles through three status: validated, received by agency, and finally, agency tracking number will be assigned. All applications must be submitted electronically in either PDF or Microsoft Word, and we recommend applicants submit all documents as read-only flattened PDFs. Any fillable PDF files must be saved and submitted as non-fillable PDFs. When the department's G5 system successfully retrieves an application from grants.gov, a second confirmation is generated. This second confirmation includes a proposal request number or a PR award number. This number typically begins with the letter H, followed by the CFDA number and alpha, the two last digits of the federal fiscal year, and finally a four-digit number that is generated in the order in which the applications are received. For example, the first application submitted through the Stepping Up Technology Grant Program in 2019 will receive a PR award number of H327S 190001. All of our funding opportunity CFD numbers start with H. The 327S is the funding opportunity for our technology program. 19 is the year, and the last four digits, 0001, is the order the application was submitted. We discourage paper applications, but if electronic submission is not possible, such as not having access to internet, an applicant must do certain things. They must provide a written statement of intent to submit a paper application no later than 2 weeks before the application deadline, which is 14 calendar days. The applicant must mail or fax a written statement to the department explaining the reason for their exception preventing you from using the internet to submit your application, and submit original application and along with 2 copies on or before the application deadline to the department. I have to say that we haven't had a paper submission in over the past 2 years, but if you are needing an exception, this is the process. Applicants requesting a submission exemption must provide a written statement of intent to submit a paper application and mail to me at the address listed here. If you mail your written statement to the department, it must be postmarked no later than 2 weeks before the application deadline. So again, make sure you check when the NIA does come out to check the deadline. A few words about formatting recommendations of the application. First, the application narrative, which is part 3, is where applicant addresses selection criteria that reviewers use to evaluate the application. We recommend the following formatting guidelines: that the page limit in the narrative section should be no more than 50 pages with 1-inch margins. Double space all text in the narrative section, including charts, tables, screenshots, graphs, headings, footnotes, and citations. And use a 12-point font in one of the following: Times New Roman, Courier, Courier New, or Arial. A page is considered 8.5 by 11 inches on one side only, with 1-inch margins at the top, bottom, and both sides. Page limit and spacing does not apply to Part 1, the cover sheet, or Part 2, the budget section, and Part 4, the assurances and certifications, or the abstract page. The abstract should precede the table of contents and application narrative. The abstract template is located in the hyperlink in the slide and is also in the application, be included in the application package. Again, 4 parts of the application include Part 1, which is the application for federal assistance, which includes the SF-424 form. Part 2 is the budget information, and that's Form 524. Part 3 is the application narrative, and Part 4 are the assurances and certifications. Reviewers will be instructed to review content of Appendix A as they do the application narrative, but they will not be required to review any other appendices. Appendix A is to be used only for charts, tables, figures, graphs, screenshots, and logic models that provide information directly relating to the application requirements for the narrative. It should not be used for supplementary information. Listed here are the selection criteria that reviewers will be using in evaluating individual applications. Each of the selection criteria have assigned point values. We have 6 different selection criteria. Significance, which is worth 10 points. Quality of project design, worth 20 points. Quality of management plan, worth 20 points. Adequacy of resources, worth 10 points. And quality of project evaluation, that is worth 15 points. So there will be a total of 100 possible points that an applicant can earn. Applicants should carefully review all selection criteria and sub-criteria and address all in their application. Listed here is the criteria for significance, which is worth 10 points, and its sub-criteria. As you see listed here, the 5 factors or sub-criteria under significance include the significance of the problem or issue to be addressed by the proposed project, the magnitude or severity of the proposed problem to be addressed by the proposed project, the extent to which specific gaps or weaknesses in services, infrastructure, or opportunities have been identified and will be addressed by the proposed project, including the nature and magnitude of those gaps or weaknesses. The potential contribution of the proposed project to increased knowledge or understanding of educational problems, issues, or effective strategies, and the potential replicability of the proposed project or strategies, including, as appropriate, the potential for implementation in a variety of settings. So I'm not going to read each of the sub-criterion for the remaining 5 selection criterion. But please note that the selection criterion are also in the NIA and the application package, and applicants should carefully review. Here is the quality of project. Here for the quality of project services is worth 25 points. The quality of the project design is worth 20 points, and its following sub-criteria. Here, quality of management plan is worth 20 points in its sub-criteria. Adequacy of resources worth 10 points. Project evaluation is worth 15 points. In addition to the 6 selection criteria, applicants will also need to address general and special requirements. Applicants should list in the table of contents all general and special and other requirements for the priority, and along with the corresponding page number or numbers where requirements are addressed within the application. This will assist reviewers in the review process. The general and special requirements for this particular priority are: projects funded under this notice must make positive efforts to employ and advance in employment qualified individuals with disabilities in project activities, and you can see this under Section 606 of IDEA. And applicants and grant recipients funded under this notice must involve individuals with disabilities or parents of individuals with disabilities, ages birth through 26, in planning, implementing, and evaluating the project. And you can see this under Section 682A1A of IDEA. If applicants have any additional questions after reviewing this competition-specific webinar, I encourage you to contact me. Thank you for your time and your attention, and best wishes as you navigate the process of applying for the Stepping Up Technology Implementation Grant opportunity.